Hello and good afternoon all, and welcome to the Project Management Institute and the Tony Illuminative Foundation Masterclass series, Idea to Reality. This is a six-part series that focuses on project management in entrepreneurship. For anyone joining us for the first time today, part one focused on project management for successful entrepreneurs, followed by a session on strategy and portfolio management. Part three was centered around risk and uncertainty, and our last session, which was part four, was focused on lean startup and scale up. Today's session will explore a range of power skills that help business leaders and teams stay focused and engaged in order to produce rewarding business value. As you can tell, I'm really excited about today's masterclass as we have two great personalities joining us today to deliver an interactive but skillful session. I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Ed Hoffman, who is the founder and CEO at Knowledge Strategies and is also a strategic advisor at PMI. Also joining us today from PMI is my colleague, whom many of you may recognize if you've attended previous sessions, Mr. George Asamani, the Business Development Leader for Africa. Before we get started, please remember to post any questions you may have in the chat, and we will address them during the Q&A session. If you are registered for this session, you will receive a copy afterwards, and the recording will be made available on YouTube. For any queries you may have, please contact the TEF team or PMI on the email address, which will be shown at the end of the presentation. And for those of you who attend all 6 sessions, you will receive a certificate of learning. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to share with you that PMI recently collaborated with Stanford Professor Benham Tabrizi, an expert on organizational transformation. Professor Tabrizi argued that we should really refer to soft skills as power skills because they are what will give people power in the future. Now ask yourselves, what types of power skills are represented in your project teams today and which need to be developed further? Now, before you answer, bear in mind that creativity, leadership, the ability to persuade, and many other skill sets are skill sets that machines still cannot quite match in comparison to human capabilities. So I'll ask you again, what types of power skills are represented in your project teams today and which need to be developed further? Please share your answers in the chat. And as I hand over to Dr. Ed Hoffman to kickstart today's masterclass.
Joanna, thank you very much. I am Ed Hoffman. I am the strategic advisor for the Project Management Institute. I want to say as I start that I'm thrilled really to be part of the Tony Illuminative Foundation and the importance of talking about entrepreneurship, about leadership, and the benefits not only to individual leaders, but to their teams, their communities, and to their societies. So I'm very thrilled to be here with my colleague, George. I spent most of my career at NASA. So I joined and started working with the PMI team a few years back. And one of the things that I noticed was that performance, success, growth, development, it happens at the team level. You have to understand that at NASA, I was the director of the NASA Academy for Program, Project, and Engineering Leadership and the Chief Knowledge Officer during those years. And so my job was to get individual leaders prepared and ready to have the competence and the capability and the confidence to be successful. I had a responsibility to the larger organization that learning was taking place and that NASA was going to be successful. And also a key focus is that projects, that the teams were performing well. And what I would tell you as one of the keys is that when we're talking about, as Professor Tabrizi says, we're in an age where power skills are vital. I totally agree with that. I've been saying this in a project world for years. It happens at the team level. So how do you create an effective team? Let's go to the next slide and we'll start talking about this notion. So what I want to do here is I want to give you a way of thinking about what is it that we know about teams. Everything you do is happening in this incredible, fast-paced, opportunistic, and challenging world of teams, projects, programs, ways of working. Your success is not just a function of your own capability and knowledge. It's really a function of the people that you bring around you. It reminds me actually of something my grandmother used to say is who you're going to be is based on who you spend your time with. And that's really the project age. So when we go through this, I want to give you a framework of thinking very straightforwardly of how do you develop the teams that you're working with? How can you predict how teams are working, how projects are going, and thinking about this framework from the standpoint of creating a context that gears towards success. And then later on, I want to give you a couple of skills around appreciation and story. We can go to the next slide now. But again, this is something that I would look for when I worked with teams and organizations and a way of thinking about what leads to success. Now, I believe this is a slide that you've seen before. Anybody who's been involved in the Project Management Institute knows that there's a few things that we've been saying. One is that people and knowledge are an organization's most valuable assets. I think most people agree with that, but it's more important now than any time in the previous history of humanity. The reality is that the world is changing. There's dynamic changes going on. Knowledge, capabilities, technologies, ways of doing things are changing. So our success comes from the people that we work with, their ability to adapt, to be agile, to respond quickly, to learn quickly, to learn new ways of working together and to be comfortable with that, and to pool the resources. And we can go to the next slide, but to pool the resources of the individuals working with you on your entrepreneurial endeavor or on your project and on your mission, so that you have what is called collective intelligence. Collective intelligence from a team or from a country or for a society means that we're working on something we can tap into different individuals, their knowledge, if it's in risk or if it's in safety or if it's in data analytics. It's the whole team, it's the whole community that we rely on. This is why these skills are so important. A number of years ago, I was doing research while I was still at NASA. I was published in the MIT Sloan Management Review. And the focus of it is what do project managers, what do project leaders do to be successful? And we were already seeing the importance of agility, the importance of learning, the importance of the adaptive mode. And so what did we find in this study? One, that the most effective leaders formed teams that were highly collaborative. They had people that were built around trust. There was an appreciation for who they were working with. And one of the things I mentioned here is we're going to come to this later. One of the first tools that I'm going to suggest that you really hold on to is the tool of being grateful and appreciative of the opportunity that you're working on. I'd like you to think about and write into the chat, what is it that you're most grateful for? What are you appreciative about in terms of the world you're living? Could be about the work you're doing. It could be learning right here. It could be from your family. And my argument in the case I'm going to make is that appreciation and gratitude are key foundational ingredients for these power skills from the standpoint of when we care for each other, when we appreciate each other, when we're appreciative of what is taking place, we perform better. And when that is there, we have collaboration, we have a mutual connection with the members of our team and our customers and the stakeholders who are watching over us. It means that learning is taking place. You cannot be successful today with the initial idea and stopping there. I think George may talk to that later as we've discussed things. The most effective projects and leaders, they don't have a brilliant idea and then go with it. They have an idea that starts, it fails, it changes, it adapts. And based on this collective community, that based on this team, we learn and we get better. They also stay focused on dealing with the disruptions. You're going to have an idea and then you're going to find somebody else had it. Or you're going to have an idea and you're going to find the platform isn't ready to go. They don't stop, they anticipate that, they cope with it, they proactively move forward. And the key ingredient of entrepreneurship and agility and lean and many of these things we've been talking about is that we keep moving forward. And we move forward because we have this energy, we have this appreciation, we have people who keep working with us. We can go to the next slide. But this research has been demonstrated, it's been replicated. This is the world we live in. Your members, I believe, you're part of the Project Management Institute. It is a project world. It's a world of teams. And that is the ultimate power source that we have. I teach at Columbia University. One of the courses I teach is Navigating the Future of Work. And it started because I was getting students who were saying, Ed, you keep talking about the new skills, that we're going into a new age. It's a project age. What does this mean? So I had to study this. And we can spend a whole day on this slide, but what it says is that the skills that humans that we need to be successful have to do, and they start with inclusion and appreciation. They start with the people. That's one of the places I'm going to come back to. They start with the sense that we're working on something that's marvelous. Isn't it wonderful? You're in Africa right now. I'm here in Maryland in the United States. We have people from around the world. We can appreciate the capability to come together and work, and we can include each other. So again, maybe that's something you're appreciative of, that you can write into the chat. What is it that you have gratitude for being alive right now? These other skills that we need that others have talked to has to do with agility. It has to do with working together in a freelance kind of a project product kind of age where we're doing different things as time goes by. My students tell me they expect to change positions, that they need to reskill themselves every 2 to 3 years. Totally different environment. Learning, working in teams, the importance of technology, of AI, of robotics, of deep learning. And this notion of organizational identity. Now we can go to the next slide. The organizational identity is this notion that when we're working for our society, when we're working, we're having our entrepreneurial success, we give back because we have an identity from where we came from, right? One of the things that I'm honored to be talking here, again, at the Tony Iumello Foundation, is the fact that this is based on good works. Here's someone who's very successful, could have said, I'm going to just be happy with myself and my family. He said, no, I'm going to do something for the larger society. That's an ingredient of where we're going with these future skills. Here are some words. When you talk about power skills, people say, what does that mean? Well, it means lifetime learning mindset. It means we can't stop. We want to keep learning. We're looking for new ways to go. It means we're aware of cultures because we're working everything across the globe. Most major initiatives now are partnerships. It's about being responsible for our social and our communities. We can go to the next slide. It's also about being creative. It's about critical thinking skills. It's about being humble, because if we're not humble, then we don't think we need to learn from others. And these are all vital skills. Now, this has also been vital going back over the years. Again, I spent a long time at NASA in my role. And the number one thing that I saw at NASA was that the difference between failure and success came down to these concepts of people. You see a nice image here of the space shuttle program that closed down a few years back. And I often tell the story of two shuttles. One that was a tragic failure, the Columbia, which led to a loss of the crew of 7 people. And the other was a shuttle that happened exactly almost 6 years later, where I was at mission control. And the engineering team found a problem in one of the systems. And they had to deal with how to approach that. And what I would say is, in that situation of capability and strength, what happened was that there was time for communication. There was time for people to look at data for what was it really saying. There was a collaborative spirit taking focus. And there was a total commitment to the larger team, the team of NASA engineers, project people, folks working safety and risk, retired people who showed up, international partners and industry partners. And that is the key elixir to our success. You can go to the next slide. It's the notion that our success comes from this team environment of working with each other. And you can check me on this thing. I always tell people, if you want to know about project management, what works and what doesn't, read one of the project failure reports. And you will always find that at the core of things, when they don't go right, it has to do with how people were working together. The team ingredient, the power skills that we're talking about are vital. So what do you need to know about creating this success in your idea as an entrepreneur, as a leader? The number one thing I say is, keep in mind, you want to start with people. And we can click this till we get to the framework that I'm going to be talking about. But what you want to do is you want to start with people. And what are people thinking about? When you join a team, when you're working on a project, when you think about a situation, when you've worked with your the project or the leader that you love working with the most, what do you think about? And I'm going to say that teams that are effective, they go through, in essence, 4 different dimensions. They're balanced in different ways. The first things that when people say they really love working with you on your project is, this is a project that focuses around people. This is a project that focuses around developing my skills. I'm learning, I am growing, I'm getting better. I'm getting capability so that if the project ends today, I am better tomorrow. So one, it's about the future capability and focusing on taking care of your team, your people, yourself as we move forward. The second aspect of the people dimension has to do with the notion of the reality and the present right now. And it's the notion that the most effective teams, they appreciate each other. When I was at NASA, when people started working there, I'd always say, how do you feel right now? And it was always the case where new people, they were enthusiastic, they loved it, their mothers loved it, everyone was enjoying what was happening. I said, remember that moment, because you're going to be working in situations that are hard. You're going to have bad days. You're going to work with people you don't like. You're going to want to go down to that sense of appreciation and gratitude. And again, we're going to come back to this. I would like you to think about, what are you most appreciative of in terms of your work? What are you grateful about in terms of where you are and the opportunities you have? And write that in to your to the chat. George and I will come back to that. So we start with the people. We make sure we're growing, we're learning, we're doing things like this. We're getting people more capable. They're learning, they're getting excited about the opportunity. We're respecting them in the present. We're saying thank you. We're inclusive. Inclusive means we listen to each other. We don't have to agree with each other, but we listen to each other. And there's respect across the team. And as we focus on the people, then we follow that up with the work, the mission, the dream, the entrepreneurial idea that we have, which has to do with what's the vision, what's the direction, where are we trying to get to? In many of the cases, what you're doing is going long frame to different ideas. And so you want to take the time to make sure people are clear on the destination and then setting up your processes. So what is it that I'm saying about how performance happens at the team level? So there are 3 things on this slide that we're going to talk to. One is that effectiveness in a project, in a product, in an entrepreneurial endeavor, in taking an idea to reality, it's about being focused on your people, on your team, on your family, on the political stakeholder, on the people that are necessary for us to be successful, inclusion and respect, and understanding where our destination, what our mission is. Number 2, keep an eye on the future. People want to know that there's something that they're getting better, they're learning, they're going forward, and then take time. Don't ever forget the people, don't ever forget the teams. Let's go to the next slide. And so there's a framework that I want to share with you. This is a framework when I was at NASA that was developed by my colleague and friend, Dr. Charlie Pellerin. Charlie was known throughout his career, if you searched him. He's very well known as one of the great observatory leaders for things like the Hubble Space Telescope. And he was a physicist and a project leader for NASA and led strategy for many years. And then at the end, he basically said, Ed, I realized the most important thing is about leadership. It's about the team. This is like 15, 20 years ago. It was a recognition from Charlie, who led these major missions, that it was about the power skills. So this is a way you can take a picture of this and put it on there. But it says in the blue, start with people. Make sure that you're including people. There shouldn't be anybody working with you that doesn't want to be working with you, and vice versa. So there's a sense of respect and inclusion. People are learning, they're growing. There's that growth mindset that's important. Then we're going to the side that focuses on the task, the vision, the idea, and setting up the processes for being successful. Next slide. And it's important to start this way because my experience in working with organizations for so long is that we tend to start from the standpoint of giving people directions for the work, telling people the processes for what needs to happen. And that's important, but we get there after we start with the team. And basically this, to me, this beautiful image of the hand showing a heart and the sun, it's about expressing authentic appreciation. When we have an appreciation, and we can go to the next slide, when we have appreciation, what's taking place is that we have a sense of importance and validation for the team we have. When we care for each other, we can communicate, we can be honest, we can deal with the different issues. When something goes wrong, I can talk to you because there's that trust there, there's that psychological safety. And it happens in animals. Mammals are known for needing a sense of connection with each other, and they do that in different ways. You may be surprised, but when I did a study at NASA years ago, in terms of the most important missions we had, the International Space Station, shuttle, the Mars programs, when I spoke to these senior leaders, one thing that they all said at the time, which surprised me, is that it's much easier to be successful in a complex mission when all the people around you are appreciative and supportive. And that's actually a picture going back to Apollo, the moon missions years ago, with the US president who is visiting the astronaut group. It actually makes a difference when you're a sponsor, if you care and you want that entrepreneurial idea to be successful. It was surprising to me, but now I understand it in terms of this notion of power skills. And one of the PMI colleagues I work with, Darcia, that's her and her dog. There's even a connection with our animals that mean a lot. Next slide. So appreciation is, to me, a natural starting point. And I almost don't like to call it a tool, but effective leaders and entrepreneurs understand that when people are excited, when there's enthusiasm, when people appreciate working together, they work better. Think about any organization that you would love to work for. Think about what excites you. One of the things, if you work there, you'd be appreciative. I loved working at NASA. I was grateful to be there. And that contributed to the performance that I have. Now, I spent time preparing for this, talking to George, and George has wonderful stories and is very appreciative. So I'm going to put you on the spot, George, and I wonder if you can briefly share what you feel grateful for.
Thanks, Ed. Hi, everyone. Personally, I think there's a lot I feel grateful for. Grateful for my faith, which gives me that tenacity and that hope. Grateful for how I grew up. Grateful for my family. And grateful for the challenges that I had in the past. And they weren't necessarily dramatic challenges, but simple things like when I was throughout school, I was in sports teams, and my team lost a lot. And there's something about being on a basketball team. There's a crowd watching you and you're losing and you have to keep going. The alternative is to walk off the court and walk off in shame, but just the ability to keep playing every single game to the point where you start winning. And then you just turn the whole situation around from one of losing, persevering, and then, winning on even on a national level. So I'm grateful for those experiences because they help to shape who I am now and how I respond to real life situations right now. So that's just a few things I'm grateful for.
And I don't know if I can't see here, but I don't know if anyone wrote in the chat Anything that you think that's interesting there that you can share,
Absolutely.
George? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few things in the chat which I'm looking at the moment. So what Yemisi Olajitan says, I'm grateful and appreciative of human resources around me. I'm guessing she runs a business, and maybe she's got a great team that she's working with. Someone else says, I'm grateful for family and success. That's Joy Anthony. And a lot of people are grateful for their family. Someone says, 1GK says, I'm grateful for good health. So there's a lot of family in there, and there's a lot of sort of gratefulness for hope.
That's wonderful. And I connect with all that, and connect with George because of the different stories. I also went to a school where its teams always lost. And matter of fact, I went to a university, Columbia University, which, we always lost at football. And so, I think you connect with people when you hear what they're appreciative about. And our family is a common theme, and health and these important factors. It makes us work better together. I mean, we haven't met in person, George and I, but I feel that there's a connection with each other. This is what we're talking about. It's not ephemeral. It's not something that's just nice to do. It makes for the fabric of a strong team. I encourage you to spend time with your teams, with your ideas of what are you grateful for? All right. I talked to my wife about getting ready to talk to her. She can tell I was extra excited about this. And I was talking about my appreciation. That's how we use it. We go to the next slide. And so this is, by the way, when I coach, when I consult to teams, I often start with a short appreciation and gratitude activity. And gratitude comes from many sources. I've been really blessed and lucky. I've worked at NASA, one of the great organizations on the planet. I love working at the Project Management Institute with the people, with the connections, with the notion of being global. I teach at Columbia. The students make me laugh. Wonderful family. And in terms of life, I love traveling. Can't do it right now, but love traveling, love food, and the spiritual side, as George came to. It's useful for a leader as an entrepreneur. You can get lonely with all the challenges. Think about all the good things, convey that to people. People want to follow your idea. They'll want to work with you. Next slide then gets into the notion of how do we convey this notion of appreciation and gratitude. And it's the second of these two skills that I want to let you think about. I'm going to talk about the importance of story. And what is story important for? Story creates a connection amongst people. When dogs or when wolves come together, they smell each other, right? When birds come together, they kind of fly in different formations. I think when people, it doesn't matter where they come from, when they look to get to know each other, they sit together. They often have food, they drink, and they tell each other stories about where they came from, about their hopes, about their challenges. Because what a story does, it's the ultimate compliment. If you ask me to tell my story, you're creating a sense of a purpose, a meaning for my existence. When we talk about the stories we have for the work we're doing, the projects, creates a common area for us, and creates a dignity. I've done this activity where I've asked people working in organizations, major organizations all around the world, think about a time where you worked on a project here where things went wonderful. You had a challenge and it came out great. And they would write that. And sometimes people in this organization, when they're 20, 30 years, they started tearing up. And they said they remembered what makes this organization so special. Next slide. So think about also the stories you have. Here's a very brief one. One of the best entrepreneurs, the best leaders at NASA during my time there was a colleague, Jerry Madden. He led major science missions. And I asked him to teach at the NASA Academy. And he said, I'll teach it as long as I don't have to wear a tie and as long as I don't need to use slides. And he would just tell stories. And one of the stories he would tell was about working on a mission where it was an international mission, and his team would go to Germany to work with folks on the German space agency, one of their industry organizations. And he told us that when he would get there, they would always have dinners, and they would have special meals, and there would be wines there, and they would really take care of you. You felt part of the community. And so at one of their meetings, one of their project reviews, he said, look, we need to do something. what we're going to do is we're going to have a traditional American barbecue. They arranged to have the best barbecue sauce that they got from Texas. They arranged for the best meat, and they had a celebration. They had a party, they had a barbecue, and it was wonderful and people enjoyed it. As it happened, a couple of weeks later, the project ran into a problem. It was a minor problem, but it was going to take them past the deadlines that they had for launch for what they needed to do. And as they were discussing this, they were in the queue, they couldn't move ahead. One of the engineering technicians heard it and said, "Aren't those the barbecue sauce people?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, those were wonderful people. I remember that party. Don't worry about it. I will work the problem over my lunch period coming up, and I will take care of it." And he did. And it created a special relationship for the rest of that mission. Jerry said that is what project management is about. I would say that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about your people, creating an environment. And often it happens through food and through drink. So the next slide, basically, this is an activity. You can do it with your team. You can do it with your family. Think about a time where you had a great challenge, a problem, something that needs to be worked, and you overcame it. Write that up. What was the problem? Just little notes. What was the outcome? What was the solution? What were the steps you took? Who were the important people? Once you've done that, it should take you only about 5 minutes. Talk to your people. We would do this at NASA all the time. We'd have someone share a story, 5, 10 minutes, no slides. And then in groups at tables, we would talk about it, what we learned, what we could use, why we do things differently. Tell stories. It makes a connection between people. It allows us to appreciate what we're doing, our common humanity. It creates more of a sense of inclusion and connection. And we actually learn from it. A lot of the policies, we can go to the next slide, a lot of the policies that we did at NASA came from the stories of success and of failure that we had. And these are questions I would ask folks. When you tell stories, what are the common stories you tell from your project, from your effort? What are the things going well? What are the things not? How do you want to change things? This is a way of sensing the environment. How do you feel about it? Not only thinking, but how do you feel? Are there certain stories when you talk with your colleagues that really make you feel special? Are there others that take you into a more disappointed direction? And very important, how do you learn from this? This is the essence of knowledge, which is we learn from each other, from their common stories, and we get better. Next slide. So stories go together with appreciation and gratitude, which I argue are at the center of these power skills. Here's something just for you to go through. If you want to do this with your team, you can do an 8-10 minute activity. You can have people talking in pairs, just like when George and I, we exchange stories all the time. It's natural for humans. In every society, we tell stories. And, just tell the story. Just take a couple of minutes to do that. What was the journey? What was the obstacle? What was the resolution? Is it still going? What's the lesson? Have the other person share, thank each other, express appreciation. What do these stories tell you about your approach? Let's go to the next slide. So again, effective teams, effective projects, they're about storytelling. Effective sporting teams, they often tell stories and they learn from that, they get better. A book called The Story Factor a number of years back by Annette Simmons saying every entrepreneur, every leader should have 6 types of stories. One is about who I am. I remember attending the event probably about a month ago with my colleague and friend, Moses Adoko. Worked with Moses for many years at NASA. And he told this story about being a child in Ghana and learning there and working there. And he would always brag about growing up in Ghana, the advantages, the energy, and then going to Scandinavia before coming to the United States. That's the story of who I am. Maybe it's also about why I'm here. So our stories connect with people and they become lessons. You should have stories in all those areas. The final thing I'll say and then turn it over to George is we're in the age of projects and knowledge. And in such an age, it's about power skills. And the next slide shows some of the skills that we can use to be effective leaders. It's about appreciation and gratitude. It's about being 110% committed to the work that we're doing once we're clear on the vision and the goal. It's not going to be easy. It's going to fail. People are going to get in the way. We have to rely on each other. It's about asking whys. Why did this work? Well, why did it happen that way? Why didn't it? About pre-mortems, about shared interest. These are all about building team. They're about connection. They're about being good today in the present with each other, but also thinking about the future of how we take our idea and make it reality. And now I'm going to listen to George about his fascinating story.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you very much. And hi again, everybody. So I want to share my story as we've been talking about stories. I'm George Asimeni, a business development leader for Africa at PMI, and I'm responsible for scaling PMI's impact in Africa. So I work a lot with organizations of all sizes from all sectors to achieve their objectives using the discipline of project management. I'm really grateful for my work because it's directly linked to my purpose. I see it as an opportunity to serve my continent. For many years, we've heard about Africa Rising, we've heard about Kenako, as in its time in Setswana. And these are narratives that really, inspire me. And I just want to be part of that, part of the horde of people who are working together, to get Africa to the next level. So, power skills. What does this mean for your business? Let's look at businesses using, or let's look at your business using the simplified version of Porter's value chain. Porter's value chain looks at different stages of delivering your product or service. The stages are inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing, sales, customer service. Sales and customer service is the last one, actually. So I've included a link in the notes for your reference, but this is what I'm going to be using around telling my story. So if you're trying to improve your business, then what are the typical power skills to employ at each of these stages? Here are a few examples. So we've got inbound logistics. Negotiation and business ethics are incredibly useful power skills. If your priority is getting the best raw material at the lowest cost and in the most sustainable way, then the top power skills you need are the ability to negotiate with your suppliers on cost, negotiate on quality, and the method of delivery. In today's world, we've become a lot more aware of where raw materials come from. We're more conscious of sustainability and fair trade. We should always ask ourselves, what is the long-term impact on the community or on the environment because of our choices of where we get our raw materials from? The second stage of our business is operations. When we get the raw materials in, what are the processes that actually work together to form our product? So I think in operations, adaptability and continuous improvement, and resourcefulness actually are key power skills. Operations, as we said, is about the processes and resources that make up your product. If that's the case, then the power skill here is one that's about constantly looking for better processes and then adapting to the better process and then doing it again and again and so on. Think about Kaizen, think about continuous improvement. And ideally, it's about doing this with the resources that you already have so that you're not having an additional expenditure. You're being resourceful. In terms of the next stage of the value chain, outbound logistics, strategic thinking, and negotiation are the skills that I'd apply there. You rely heavily on these skills when you determine who should sell your product, why they should sell it, how do you get to them, how much money they should take for it, and how you deliver directly to your customers. Then we've got marketing. Everybody knows about marketing. Creativity and emotional intelligence. You need these to strategically define the different types of customers to target, their needs, how to reach them, and what value you provide to them. Then, of course, we've got sales, persuasion, tenacity, the hustle. That's the soft skills that our salespeople need, to secure and grow that revenue. And then the final point on that value chain is customer service. So for customer service, I'll say the power skill there is adaptability and logical thinking. You need this to be able to satisfy your customers at every stage of their interaction with you. So let's look at this through the lens of a startup that I co-founded in 2013. The startup is called DoApp Music Messaging. So here's the story of DoApp. So DoApp is a music messaging platform that allows you to use any words from any song in your messages, just like you use emojis. So think of it as music emojis. So for example, I'm sure many of you know NECA from TEF. So imagine I pick up my phone and I send NECA a message. I say, hey, NECA, please, can you send me some mobile money? I'll give it back tomorrow. NECA receives my message and then she replies, you know what? It's typing on her phone. You know what? Now is not a good time for certain reasons, but for your case, so I will give it to you. You know, so in that instance, she's used for your case in her message to say to me that, look, I'll give you, you know, it's tough, but I'll give you the cash. So using music as emojis. A second example is, you know, for example, maybe I'm saying to a friend of mine, hey, John, you know, how's your day? And then John replies to me, hey, George, it's a beautiful day. Hey, hey, hey. So using music as emojis and a communication medium. So how did it work? How did DoApp work? So first of all, as I mentioned, you're typing an everyday message. You want to express yourself more than just words. So you search the lyric or emotion that you want, and then you find the word phrase and you add it to your message. Then you send it to your friend, and then your friend plays the song. At that point, they can buy, share, or stream. Now, the people behind this business, I'm one of the co-founders. The co-founders are all from the same family. So from the point of view of power skills, I think there's something about working with people that you're close to where your power skills really are just amplified. And why do we think that this business would work? It's all about the evolution of the sector that we chose to work in. So the music industry. So, you know, went from gramophones to records to CDs, and then to digital downloads. Well, from digital downloads, now it's all about streaming, right? And when you look at streaming in 2013, the recorded music industry lost more than 50% of its global revenues because of the transition from physical to digital over a 10-year period. But there was hope because revenues from streaming started to increase, right? And streaming and messaging were the two biggest areas of mobile at that time. And we combined those two areas. It was all about expression, and it still is. So we launched this product, and we had success. You know, we're part of the top 2 accelerators in the UK and EU. We won music industry awards and recognition by the BBC, Universal Music. We flew around the world with partners and investors in LA, Berlin, Israel, China. We gained recognition in various publications, including the Sunday Times, and we raised a significant amount of money. So the question is, how do we get there? And my response is, a lot of it had to do with the power skills across the value chain. You know, first, our inbound logistics was about sourcing content. That content was music. We're music lovers, and we wanted to do it right. To get that music, we could have just hacked or bootlegged the content from YouTube and other sources, but we knew that that was short-sighted. First of all, we wouldn't have the rightful ownership of the content. And second of all, the quality of the content was at times inconsistent or poor. At the time, tech businesses would just use YouTube content anyhow, quoting a fair use loophole, and we made a conscious decision not to do that. So we approached the labels. Music labels are those people who own the content. So we're talking about Sony, we're talking about Warner, we're talking about Universal. They own 3/4 of the world's recorded music. And we decided that our business should source its ingredients, its inbound logistics should be from the source, from the labels. So we hustled our networks, and we eventually got a foot in the door to pitch for the content. We had a great reaction. You know, they loved the idea. And remember, this is in 2013, and nothing like this existed at the time. They loved the idea and the fact that, you know, we didn't bootleg the content, but guess what? It wasn't free. We spent a whole year negotiating. You know, firstly, because nothing like this existed, the contracts that they initially gave us to secure the music didn't fit our type of business. You know, we only needed less than 15 seconds for those music messages, and the contracts were for full songs. And secondly, they required that we pay $500,000 upfront as a minimum guarantee. As a startup, we didn't have $500,000 lying around for this. So again, we spent a lot of time understanding the contracts, understanding what the labels want and need, and ultimately we created a new contract for the industry. Effectively, we created pay-as-you-go contracts for micro content. We created, we pitched, we negotiated, and we got the licensing from Universal Publishing and Sony ATV. These are two of the biggest music publishing companies in the world. And all that work was just on our inbound logistics. Then you move to our operations. You know, we're talking about adaptability and resourcefulness as key power skills in operations. Once we had our music from Sony and Universal, we needed a very, very, very efficient way to curate the content that we just secured from the labels. We needed a way to chop it up into pieces so that you could use it as emojis. So what did we do? We created the coolest curation team that you could find. We built a team of young DJs, interns, passionate techies who are looking for a new challenge, who could just look through the millions of songs that we acquired through the labels and then creatively chop them up into words that you could use in your chat as specific words. First, we started manually, then we built our own technology tool that could assist the curators, and then we started work on an AI solution to make it a lot more easier and automated. So that's an example of adaptability and continuous improvement. You know, when we built the technology, we filed for a patent actually because, you know, we got to a point where it was actually a valuable resource in itself. Next point on the value chain is that outbound logistics. You know, that's getting out the product to the market. What channels are you going to use to get your product to the users? And in the case of apps, you just go to the app stores, right? The strategic thinking really is which app store do you want to go to? And that depends on your market. In Europe, 73% of people are on Android. In Africa, it's 85% of people on Android. So you decide, you know, which one you want to go to because the different stores have different requirements. In our case, it was quite straightforward to get onto Google. However, with Apple, it was challenging. We got a couple of rejections because music is sensitive. But the good thing is, because we decided to go the right way around and get the content in the right way, we're able to prove to Apple that actually our content was legit and from the right source, and so we're able to get in the App Store. In terms of marketing, we're talking about creativity and emotional intelligence. That's you know, our marketing was based on using influencers actually. As a startup, we had two priorities, which is end users and investors, and we essentially used we understood the psychology of influence. You know, we partnered with artists to influence users, and then we partnered with the biggest digital music executive in the world, this gentleman, Rob Wells, to influence investors and give us the guidance that we needed. Sales, everybody knows persuasion and tenacity and hustle. When it comes to sales, you know, we had 4 revenue streams. One was affiliate revenues, which is, you know, people actually buying full songs when they heard a clip of what we had. And then the other 3 were about getting companies or organizations to advertise or license or do analytics on our content. We literally spent all day, every day pitching and hearing no. The amount of no's we heard, it was incredible. But it's a nice feeling when you hear no and you can just keep going. Again, that's the tenacity, that's the power skill, you know. Learning, and you know, we learned a lot, and you know, we just revised what we did when we got a no, and then we kept going. And then the final point is the customer service, adaptability and logical thinking. So this is about taking care of the customer at every point of their interaction with your business, especially at the startup stage. You know, at the startup stage, you might still be in beta, you might still be getting product feedback. So it's critical that you're agile, you're able to think logically about what the customer is saying, and then build that back into the business. So in the case of DoApp, the lessons were immense, and the power skills that were sharpened with us for life. It was an incredible experience. You know, we eventually pivoted the business to provide technology for other businesses, so kind of like an Intel Inside model. So other businesses that distribute content rather than facing off to the general public. Again, this is using the power skills of adaptability. You know, so when I consider the challenges of the unpredictable nature of entrepreneurship and the technical skills, versus soft skills, you realize that actually technical skills alone are not enough. Power skills alone are not enough. You need both. And then from a power skills point of view, remember that investors invest in people. So the more you're aware of your power skills, the more you define and hone your power skills, the more you're able to strategically use that and become more investable. And in my opinion, I think power skills are contagious. I think when you do it well, it begins to rub off in the rest of your team. How many times have you seen one of your colleagues who's just naturally very good at something, and it actually encourages you to become good at what you do as well? So I think there's some kind of synergy, there's a flow effect there where, once individuals start becoming good at their own power skills, the whole team as a whole just tends to move forward in a progressive way. So what I've spoken about is simply examples of the typical power skills valued in these areas of business. I think you can get a lot more value in your business when you diversify the skills of your teams. You can do this by adding complementary power skills or skills that offer a different perspective. So, for example, adding empathy to persuasion and tenacity of your sales, to build lasting relationships with your customers. Another example could be adding creativity to your inbound and outbound logistics to come up with new ways to move your goods. So what I'll say to you is, or what I'll ask is, what about you? What are your individual power skills? You post that in the chat. Let's see what kind of power skills are out there, and what are your team's power skills? How will you identify and hone them? Remember to think about the capability as well as the capacity. So what I mean by that is you need a certain amount and a certain type of power skills across your organization. So do that assessment, and then where will you find these? As Ed said, first of all, you start with your people. Take time out as individuals and as teams to reflect on what you have naturally. And if you identify any gaps that you don't have internally, look outside. Look at external organizations or external people. These skills can be learned through courses, or they can be acquired through, for example, mentorship. On mentoring, remember, be a mentor as well as being mentorable. That's a power skill in itself. So that's my encouragement to you. I hope that's been a useful story. I'd encourage you to go away to think about this and hone your power skills. So thank you, everybody. And that's all I have for today.
Great. Thank you, Ed and George, for an insightful and interactive session. It's been amazing. I mean, how lucky are we to get a preview of George's singing capabilities? But on a more serious note, thank you all for sharing your inputs and what you're most grateful for. I think it was general or common consensus that people are most grateful for their family. I think I also saw somewhere in the chat that someone was grateful to PMI and TEF for bringing together this session. So thank you all for joining us today. And please stay tuned for our next and final session, which is titled Concepts in Practice on the 28th of September. If you could please go to the next slide, George. Now, the Concepts in Practice session completes a full circle of all the topics discussed in this series. This will be a learning or more of a learning conversation as we aim to have you all engage with each other about practical things you can apply within your organizations. There will also be an opportunity for Q&A with subject matter experts. As a gentle reminder, please be sure to register for the full series as you can qualify to receive a certificate if you attend all the full session or all the full workshop series, You also have access to an array of useful information and resources to help you nurture and grow your business. Next slide, please, George. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time today, just very quickly for the sake of time, here's a brief introduction to PMI. PMI is a 51-year-old global organization that gives you the skill set to execute better. Whether you are a child or a teenager or a multi-billion-dollar organization, we help to give you the best chance at being successful in your venture, the best chance at moving an idea to reality. Now, we're able to do this through our thought leadership initiatives, our certification, standards, and digital products, We're a huge community of over 3 million people across the globe, which includes members, chapters, volunteers in over 200 countries. We work with over 200 organizations globally, where we share best practices and feed this back into the project management body of knowledge, and in effectively raising the bar in project management globally. We have awarded over 1.6 million certifications across the variety of our certifications. We also have footprint in Africa, and we're spread across in 17 chapters. We have members across the region and are currently running Africa-specific initiatives. So please get in touch for further details. If you can move to the next slide, George, please. The next slide, please. Thank you. Now, at the center of all of this is the resources we provide to empower individuals to turn their ideas into reality. And that's based on thought leadership and networks, certification standards, and digital products. These are all global best practices to upskilling people so that they can have the right skills they need to get the job done globally. Essentially, we bring the best practices from all over the world to one place so that people can tap into that one resource. Now, we've recently launched an initiative to benefit graduates, early career, and non-technical people who are interested in improving their execution capabilities. We have partnered with a number of trainers across the region in Africa to offer discounted training, as well as up to 35% of our entry-level certification, the CAPM. PMI Africa comes today bearing exciting news as we are glad to offer an exclusive additional 5% discount off the price of the CAPM to TEF members only, giving you a total of 40% off the price of the CAPM. Please stay tuned for more info on this from the team at TEF. But in the meantime, to find out more about the CAPM initiative, please view the list of trainers providers, as we will share the link to our Africa Initiatives website in the chat. If you can move over to the next slide, George, please. Now, thank you all for taking time to share with us the questions that you may have. Loads of questions and very interesting questions at that. So I will start with the first question, which I will share with you, Ed, if you could answer, sorry. And the first question is, if people are organizations' most valuable assets, what do you make of the recent sayings that machines will replace people in organizations?
Yeah, that's one of the key themes going on. Machines, technology is really coming to free up people to do many of the things that George talked about. Machines are good at things that are repeatable. So once you create a pattern and you don't have to think about it, machines will do that quick. That frees up people so that they can, be talking to others, the ability to create and come up with new ideas, to make the connection to the market that George was talking about requires time to talk to people. You got to go to Apple, you got to go to Google. You have to have those relationships. A machine can't do that for you. And so what we're seeing is that the repeatable process type things machines will be doing, they'll take a load off of us, but then we're going to have to be good at critical skills, at empathy, connecting with people, creating that appreciation, creating that sense of energy that's captured there. That can only be done right now by humans. And from my understanding of people who work in this field, it'll be at least another 50 years, probably longer than that, before machines can get into these human capabilities. So it's about the power skills, really, to come back to it, that machines can't do those.
Great, thanks. Here's another question for you, Ed. How do we customize this project management knowledge so that it can be utilized in other areas apart from entrepreneurship in order to be truly dynamic individuals?
Yes, I'm a believer that one of the things that I've been hearing our CEO Sunil talk about and others across PMI is that project management is a life skill. And this is one of the things I think we got wrong as a profession 20, 30 years ago. We saw project management as all about execution. It was all in the key discipline skills, which are vital. But really, project management is about You have an idea. We're living in an age where knowledge, possibilities, new technologies are changing things. And then it's how do you work with others to tailor that to the way to be successful and then to produce it in terms of the realistic outcome. And so that happens for children. That happens in terms of how we learn. That happens in terms of healthcare and sports. So I think we need to look at project management from the standpoint of a total life skill that takes us from early childhood to to the later years.
Thanks, Ed. Next question is for you, George. And the question is, how can one invest in people resource wisely and be sure to acquire tangible results? I'll repeat that again.
I think.
Okay.
No, I think that goes back to what Ed was saying. You know, first of all, start with your people, and starting with your people means spending time with them, sitting down, and going through some of those exercises that Ed just outlined. They're quite simple exercises, but I think they're powerful. They're powerful because of what they allow you to learn and the connections that they allow you to make with your people. Once you've made those connections, you're a little bit more informed on the capability, the strengths, the gaps, and then what to invest in going forward. In terms of what to invest in, they will be either more soft skills or more technical skills, and you could make the decision from there. But as Ed says, start with your people, spend time, and find out what the capabilities are.
Okay, great. Next question is to you, Ed. How do you manage people when you, as a project manager, know that the project will soon end, but need the people to perform the last-minute work to give the project the overall success?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because projects, do end, and we experience that certainly at NASA where missions are coming. And how do you keep people engaged? Again, I believe, what I say is that if you create an environment where we treat each other with respect, if we're including members, we're hearing things, if we're taking care of each other, then when you get towards that end of the project, you're going to have people who are going to talk to you about what needs to be done, and they'll stick around to finish that. The other ingredient I said is we also have to focus about the future of people, and people need to grow. They need to be developed. So to me, the best leaders, when they're working with people, they know it's not going to be forever. And so they're giving skills, they're helping people learn, they're supporting people to go off and learn about different things so that when they come out of that project, whenever it ends, they're actually more marketable than when they joined it. So I think if we do that, then people stay to the end because they want to see that vision. They want to see the success. They want to be a part of that. And even though we go on to different teams, oftentimes we like to work together with the same people as the years go by.
Okay. Next question asks, how do I move from learning in these webinars to become a professional project manager? George, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So I think there are a number of points. One is, if you've been going through this series, if you've attended every series, first of all, you're going to get a certificate of learning, to acknowledge what you've done. You could actually use that certificate of learning to start your professional journey with project management, which is obviously the Professional Institute for Project Management. The benefit of that certificate of learning is that it gives you 6 hours off the 23 hours requirement for the CAPM. Now, the CAPM is the foundational qualification. So what I'm saying is, if you've been through this webinar, use the certificate of learning to go to the CAPM, and you get 6 hours off the requirement. If you've not been through this whole series, that's still okay. You can still go start with the CAPM, which is the foundational level. As I said, from the CAPM, then you can go on to the PMP, which is essentially the gold standard in project management globally, or the benchmark for project management. And I think it's worth pointing out. I don't know if you saw on the slide, or whoever asked the question, we're running actually a discount on the CAPM at the moment because we've recognized that actually there are a lot of people who want to begin this journey. And so, you know, for a limited period of time, we're saying, all right, we're offering a massive discount. We're putting on this initiative. So, you know, take advantage of it. So at, you know, TEF, the team is going to send out emails, and also the information will be in this deck as well. So just to recap, I said 3 things. 1, I said this webinar series, the certificate of learning. 2, I've said the CAPM, and 3, I've said the PMP. Those are all points to look into, but you'll get the information in the slides as well.
Let me comment also, if I can, Joanna, if we have a
Sure.
second. Everything that George said is totally right. It's part of creating your brand, of making people know what you're about. The other thing that I really emphasize, the thing that I've always loved about PMI, I started being involved in PMI at NASA when I was in my 20s, a long time ago. And the thing that I hold in the greatest value is the people. So I imagine that there are folks right now watching from Ghana, or watching from Tanzania, or watching from South Africa. Get together with these other people, you know, get together in the chapters and the communities, go to the different events, just to talk, just to see what's happening, just to make yourself known. If the TEF activity has been wonderful, that's what I'm hearing. Maybe create a worldwide TEF where you're connecting with people. At the end of the day, again, start with people, continue with people. You want to brand yourself. You want to get the certificate so you can demonstrate your capability. You want to keep learning and being a part of this. And you want to do it in the spirit of your community, locally and globally.
Great, thank you both. Now, last question. Persuasion and tenacity do not work for me in most marketing and business negotiations. Does it mean I'm not capable?
That's an interesting question. I don't. I think we need more information for one, right? Because tenacity is not accepting that you might not be capable, but just to keep on going until you get it done. So I think maybe the thing to do is to take a step back and just look at, you know, what is your marketing process? What is the sales process? Who are the team, or who are the people who are making that happen? And then maybe just try to identify the gaps, both from a technical skills perspective and a power skills perspective. Obviously, you know, you just mentioned persuasion and tenacity. I think if the honest answer is that, you know, persuasion and tenacity don't come naturally, you could either try to develop them, maybe find a mentor, take a course. If not, there's nothing wrong with outsourcing that. You could do the analytical and the planning side of it if that's what you're more suited to, and then find somebody else who's more suited to the persuasion and the chasing and, you know, the tenacity and rejection, that side of it. So I think I know that's not a straightforward answer, but I think what I'm saying is take a step back, review the situation, and then fill the gaps where you need to fill the gaps.
Yeah, I'd also add, I think it goes down to, I usually, you know, ask people, what do you love doing? This gets kind of into the appreciation, the gratitude. So I spent my career at NASA. My background is social and organizational psychology. I was responsible for the learning, the development, the certificate, the competencies, all of these kinds of things. At one point in time, I had a boss who had encouraged me to become an engineer. And I thought about that. Then I went home. My wife said, "You hate engineering. I mean, you don't like math. So what are you going to?" So I'm tenacious in terms of what I'm doing right now. Right. I was getting into George's story because you're talking about the entrepreneurship and the technology, and but I'm into the people aspects of everything you're doing and the connections. So we're typically tenacious and we're persuasive about things that we love. And so one of the important things is, and I always ask this at NASA, are you on a project that you're really passionate about, that you want to go talk at the school of your children because you feel so good about it? And if you're not, that's okay, but maybe your passion is working on some other initiative. I think that's really important. I can't fool myself into being an engineer, but I can work with engineers for what I bring to the situation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you both for the knowledge and insights you've shared with us today. And thank you to all that have tuned in to watch us today. Special thanks goes to everyone working hard behind the scenes, Neka, Ebube, Laulu, and the team from TEF. We also extend our gratitude and thanks to Dr. Lambert, the president of the PMI Nigeria chapter, JJ, TT, and the team from PMI and PMI EF. Sadly, we've come to the end of today's session, so please stay connected and look out for the next session on the 28th of September. Please remember to look out for the slides and recording playback and try to put into practice the things that you've learned today. Don't forget to register for the next session, which will be the last session. And again, ensure you have signed up in order for you to gain your certificate of learning. My name is Joanna Baidu, and I'm the Business Development Analyst for Africa at PMI. Thank you all for tuning in today, and I look forward to seeing you again on the 28th of September. All the best.